welcome into Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. Jeffrey Cooperstein here with you guys. And on today's show, we are reacting to the various outlets' offseason grades for the Dallas Mavericks. What did outlets like Bleacher Report and CBS Sports have to say about what the Mavs did during the 2025 NBA offseason? We're going to break it down and react to all of it here on today's show. But before we do that, please go give me a follow on Twitter at Jeff_Coop27. I'm always tweeting about the Mavs, various Dallas sports and whatnot, and will likely give you updates on Twitter before you find them here on the channel. So go give me a follow at Jeff_Coop27. The first 10 followers will get a shout out here on a future show. All right, let's hop right into the off-season grades here, and we'll start with Yahoo Sports, who gave the Mavericks a B for the 2025 NBA offseason, and let's see what Ben Rohrbach from Yahoo had to say regarding the Dallas Mavericks. Scoring Flagg is a home run, but how much credit do we want to give them for a few ping pong balls bouncing their way? More than we ding them for only adding D'Angelo Russell as an Irving replacement, I guess. But it really feels like any executive could have pulled off what Dallas did this summer, making an obvious choice at number one and signing a high-usage, low-efficiency, one-time all-star to run the offense. And I absolutely agree with what Yahoo had to say here. I don't really believe Nico deserves credit for being able to draft Cooper Flagg 1 overall, because 29 other GMs would have done the exact same thing. And the D'Angelo Russell signing was an easy signing that pretty much any other team could have made. Did it make it easier because there was a prior existing relationship between D'Angelo Russell and Nico Harrison? Sure. And does he get credit for that as finding him as an Irving replacement? I guess so, but there was very limited options for the Mavericks because they only had that taxpayer mid-level available to them. And Russell was basically the only guy that they were going to be able to sign. And I do like the fit of D'Angelo Russell as well, because he can both start and come off the bench. So when Kyrie Irving does return from injury, I think that Russell will be able to come off the bench and change his role in the middle of the season, and they should be just fine. So I think this is a very accurate assessment of how the Mavericks offseason went. They did some good things, but not sure that the front office really deserves credit for what they did. CBS Sports gave the Mavericks a D+ here in their 2025 NBA offseason, and we'll talk about what Sam Quinn had to say here, and then I'll react to what he had to say because I have some beef with Sam Quinn. So he went on to say, "You do not get credit for lottery luck," which I do agree with, despite what Nico Harrison said. "Fortune did not favor the bold here. It favored the foolish. Dallas made a historically bad trade and got bailed out of it by perhaps the single most stunning stroke of lottery luck in NBA history." What a sentence that was from Mr. Quinn. "The correct course here, especially with Kyrie Irving openly telling fans not to count on him playing this season — Kyrie's going to play this season, and you can count on that, by the way — would have been to fire Nico Harrison, tear down this team, and completely realign around Cooper Flagg's timeline. Anthony Davis could have netted a haul. There are still valuable role players here, but those players do not make a coherent team. This roster is entirely unbalanced. Even if you're trying to win, why on earth do you need this many forwards and bigs? D'Angelo Russell might have been decent value at the taxpayer mid-level exception, but he's the only guard on the roster right now that can create anything off the dribble. Is Flagg going to play out of position all year?" So Sam Quinn has always been a Mavericks hater. If you remember back at the 24 NBA trade deadline when the Mavericks acquired PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, Sam Quinn gave the Mavericks a C- for those two acquisitions. Well, what happened? Those two acquisitions helped the Mavericks get to the NBA Finals. So I do want to preface that by saying he's a Mavericks hater. That being said, I do see some of the points he made. Again, Nico Harrison doesn't deserve credit for what the Mavericks have done this offseason, but he also used the Kyrie Irving situation where Kyrie said that for fans to not count on the Mavericks having him play this year. It's basically come out, and that's been completely refuted because we know what the Kyrie timeline looks like. The Mavericks have admitted that he's ahead in his rehab process, and they're going to be able to have him available this season. Now, when is he going to be available this season? That remains to be seen. But in all the more likelihood, Kyrie is going to be someone that the Mavericks can count on for at least a couple of games this season, whether it be after the All-Star break in mid-February, whether it be in January like Shams Charania originally reported, or whether it be later in March, which would mark exactly 1 year from when he sustained that torn ACL. Kyrie's going to play this offseason, so you can't use that as something to ding the Mavericks offseason with. I think it's certainly better than a D, but he does make some valid points about the Mavs roster kind of being a little bit wonky, and the Mavericks are zagging when other teams are zigging. So if it ends up working out, great. If not, I could certainly see why some would be skeptical about this Mavericks roster construction. You guys tell me down in the comments, though, for today's pin question, does Nico Harrison deserve credit for drafting Cooper Flagg? I think the answer is unequivocally no, because like I said, any team that had the ping pong ball luck and won the lottery was going to do the exact same thing the Mavericks did. They just happened to be the team whose number combination was pulled first. So type Y for yes or type N for no. Does Nico Harrison deserve credit for the Mavericks drafting Cooper Flagg? And while you're getting your votes in down there, go get yourself a Cooper Flagg jersey today. We have you covered at chatsports.com/flag. Shout out to Fanatics for sponsoring this episode of Mavericks Today. And when you use that link, chatsports.com/MavsFlag, it will be in the comments and description of today's show. Fanatics will send us a part of the proceeds as well. So you're helping out the channel while also getting yourself a Cooper Flagg jersey for the 2025-26 NBA season. Once again, chatsports.com/flag. You can find that link in the comments and description of today's show. We appreciate Fanatics for sponsoring this episode of Mavericks Today. Bleacher Report gave the Mavericks a B for the 2025 NBA offseason, which I gotta be honest, I was kind of surprised because sort of like Sam Quinn of CBS Sports, Bleacher Report has always kind of been a anti-Mavericks establishment, so to speak. But I think a B is more fair than a D plus, and their reasoning was they think the Daniel Gafford extension was a very good move. And I happen to agree with that. It was originally reported that it was going to be a 3-year, $60 million deal. It turns out it's going to be a 3-year, $54 million contract. And as a result of that, the Mavericks will not have a trade restriction on that Gafford deal. So they're going to be able to trade him if they want to. Now, I don't think the Mavs are going to execute a Daniel Gafford trade this offseason. I don't think they're planning on that, but it does give them the flexibility to be able to trade him whenever they want. And Gafford last season was super important to this Dallas Mavericks team, given the injuries to Derek Lively. And Gafford dealt with some injuries of his own. He was just limited to 57 games of action, but he averaged 12.3 points, almost 7 rebounds, almost 2 blocks a game, and was a very efficient 70% from the field. And of course, all of his numbers, from the field goal percentage come in the paint. So it's not like he's going to shoot less than 50% because he's shooting everything from 5 feet and in. But make no mistake, Gafford was a very valuable piece of this team, and getting him under 3 more years of contract at a pretty affordable price, where Gafford wanted starter money, the Mavericks gave him starter money. And even though he might be coming off the bench in certain games when Derek Lively and Gafford are both healthy, I think this was a good result for the Mavericks getting Gafford. So Bleacher Report gives them a B for that reason, and I absolutely agree with it. And the final outlet we are going to talk about today is USA Today, who gave the Mavericks an A. And you guys know me. I'm the biggest Mavericks homer out there. There is no way I could give them an A for this offseason. And I just simply don't see that. Look, if the Mavericks were able to go get another all-star caliber player alongside Cooper Flagg, if they were somehow able to swing that, then maybe you could go ahead and give them an A, but I certainly can't. USA Today on the Mavericks offseason said it's hard to take issue when the Mavericks lucked into a clear star in number 1 overall selection, Cooper Flagg. And so they're kind of taking the opposite that the other guys are, where they are giving the Mavericks credit for selecting Flagg number 1 overall. Again, yes, the Mavericks were able to acquire Cooper Flagg, and that does factor into the equation, but I cannot say they had an A offseason by any means just because they went out and got Cooper Flagg. At the end of the day, I do think the Mavericks became a better team than they were last year, and they will be able to compete in this Western Conference. But did they have the best offseason of anyone? I certainly don't think so. Just look at their counterparts down I-45 in Houston, who were able to sign Dorian Finney-Smith, get Kevin Durant, and make other moves on the fringes that make them a true contender. I think there were other teams in the Western Conference that made fantastic moves as well. I can't give the Mavericks an A, but overall, I do think they had a pretty solid offseason. Before I give you my grade, give me your grade for the offseason for the Dallas Mavericks. A, B, C, D, or F down there in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. I bet we're going to have answers all across the board on this one. I'm going to give the Mavericks a B- for the 2025 NBA offseason. I think if you're grading it on a scale of 1 to 100, it would be like an 81 overall. I think they did some good things. I don't think they improved enough to make themselves a true championship contender in this Western Conference. And I certainly have a little bit of skepticism about this roster construction, given there's a lot of older, injury-prone guys out there. And a lot of things have to go right for the Mavericks to win the NBA championship this year. But if you consider what the Mavericks did in the player acquisition phase of things, they did get Cooper Flagg, whether they lucked into him or not. They got him. They signed D'Angelo Russell to that taxpayer mid-level. And then they extended Daniel Gafford, and they re-signed Dante Exum. So all in all, I do think the Mavericks had an okay offseason. Was it a perfect offseason? Certainly not, but I think it was a passable grade, which is why I'm going to give them a B-. That will do it for today's show, guys. Appreciate you for tuning in to Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. Once again, you can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Coop27, and I'll give you all of the latest Mavericks news and rumors before you find them here on the channel.